Good morning and welcome to Get Real America.
Good Tuesday morning. I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you aboard. 24th day of January. Gotten cold again here in Savannah and going up to only about 60 degrees today. So had a kind of a little bit of a light freeze last night. We say here in Savannah, if you don't like the weather, stick around a few minutes, it'll change. So it's basically what we're going through here, this roller coaster ride where it's in the 70s one day and in the 50s the next.
Well, and also tornado warnings one day.
Well, there's that too, yeah.
The next is beautiful.
Yeah, had rain over the weekend and things of that nature, but they make the flowers grow or something along those lines if they can grow in this weather.
Yes, well, I will tell you, I'm getting new, green grass. I'm like, it's very odd this
now
time of year.
Now you're talking. Okay, very good. We're getting ready to listen to what our governor has to say. He was off at the World Economic Forum last week over in Davos.
Yes.
And we were wondering why.
Yes, and I don't think any of those questions have been answered, but we do have a clip of him speaking at Davos, and, I think inquiring minds want to know, Bill. Why
they certainly
were you there?
do. Perspiring minds do want to know. And so here's what the governor had to say over there in Switzerland.
It's the question to the voters. Look at the candidates and ask who's been fighting for you. Who was fighting to keep your business open when all the pressure from both political parties, from people in high places, from a lot of other people that were sitting in their basement on a computer was not to stay open, was not to reopen our economy. Who was pushing to get our kids back in the classroom? Well, we did all of those things. And, we proved that we were fighting for people. We were fighting for election security. We were fighting for people to have a good paying job and to have, to survive, to fight another day economically in our state. We fought for our people by giving them $1 billion of their tax money back to help them fight through 40-year high inflation because, in my opinion, of a lot of bad policies in Washington, D.C. And the voters of my state, the great state of Georgia, certainly responded to that.
Thank you, Governor. How does it look seeing it from the capital, your capital, and looking at D.C.? There's a lot of partisanship, and of course there will be disagreements in a democracy, but do you think it has gone so far that it can be a negative factor for America now moving forward?
Well, listen, I think from my perspective, a lot of frustration with Washington, D.C. I understand, Senator Coombs' position on the IRA, but, that hurt Georgia-based electric vehicle companies in our state. It was not treating them fairly. I believe the legislation picked winners and losers. Thankfully, I think the administration is working on fixing that. I don't think we were treated fairly in a state because we had been open. We had a low unemployment rate. So the level of funding coming out of Washington, D.C. and the current administration, we were treated differently from New York and California. Their citizens per capita were getting more money than ours, and so that's frustrating to someone like me as a governor that just wants to have our citizens treated fairly. There's frustrations, quite honestly. Look, if there's gridlock in Washington, D.C., one thing you can count on is the stability and a great economy, a great business environment in the state of Georgia, and we're going to keep rocking and rolling. But it is frustrating to have to deal with the fentanyl crisis because we simply cannot secure our border in this country. And I'm hopeful that something gets done. But, my advice, take it for what it's worth. While we're waiting on that, just secure the border. I mean, literally every governor in the country is dealing with the fentanyl crisis. We're dealing with street gang crisis. We're dealing with human trafficking crisis. And those are the issues that we're trying to tackle at the state level. But I believe much could be solved, and I think there will be broad bipartisan support for simply, in the meantime, while you're working on these things, to secure the dang border.
Thank you, Governor. Moving to...
I like the dang border, by God. You tell him, Brian. And he also said that that we're not going to tolerate any more of this Antifa crap that happened over the weekend. I was glad that I don't think the Alphabet networks said anything about this, Brittany, but
no.
At least Fox showed all these people that were leaders of this movement. Nobody was from Atlanta. Nobody was from Georgia. There was a guy from Maine. There was somebody from California. There was Colorado. Arizona. I mean, you name it. And this was one of those Antifa things where they sent out this text or whatever it was, e-blast, and had these people coming in here for rioting. And the governor says we are not going to stand for it. And once again, this is one of these things where we're tolerating. If we continue to tolerate this stuff, this is exactly what you're going to get. I hope the governor really cracks down on this.
Yeah, did he mention a plan or anything for that?
Didn't, but I don't think it was short of maybe calling out the National Guard if we need to. What I think we ought to do is just roll in 18-wheelers. I'd like to see when the fire department shows up, I'd like to see them show up with the old water cannons that they used to have and have this indelible red ink in them instead of water, and start blasting these people.
Yeah.
And you'll know for weeks and months who was involved in that.
Yeah, I just think that we should put them all in jail. I just don't. I think the disruptions they're causing, they need to pay a price. There have been no consequences for them behaving this way. We know that Atlanta's not the only city that these people have been in.
Oh, good Lord.
And, if these other states are not going to take care of it, I say let's do it here in Georgia. Let's lead with an iron fist, and we don't tolerate this kind of stuff. And we really haven't seen. We saw maybe a couple weeks of it, I think, during 2020, but we really haven't seen, a lot of the same things that we're seeing in some of the other Democrat-run cities, which Atlanta is, but we haven't had it on the scale that other people have had. And I think, the governor coming out and saying we're not going to tolerate it, that's a good step. I also, I haven't heard him talk a ton about the border, if I'm being honest, but the fact that he is saying, we need to close the border. The fentanyl is a huge issue, which we all know that Atlanta is a hub for that. And we have 95, we have 16 here, and the drugs are coming.
Port.
Yeah, and we have a port. The drugs are coming in and out here, and it's not good. We've got to do something, and I'm not sure what the governors can do, but we've got to hold this administration's feet to the fire.
Well, stand up for states' rights and say that we're going to do it and take care of it, and these Antifa creeps need to be arrested. And of course, every one of them, by the way, were white.
Weird how that works,
just to
isn't
mention, yeah, the extremely privileged class of these cretins that are coming around here, and they ought to be arrested immediately, if not sooner. I just roll in an 18-wheeler and throw them in the back of that. Just kind of pack them in like the cartel does with the illegal aliens coming across, and they're marching down the street with this big sign. They can't kill all of us. And I said, well, at least let's try. All right, and for those who might be on the left, that's kind of a joke. I know you don't have a sense of humor, but that's it's kind of a joke. But we do need to nip this thing in the bud, because they did start shooting. They did shoot a cop, and thank God, I think he's going to recover. But when they fired back, that's what you expect. When you are in a revolution, if you're going to be a revolutionary, you're going to have to pay the price. Okay, so just keep that in mind. By the way, I like to say, just shifting gears, but kind of keeping on the track with the governor. We have a beautiful convention center here, but for the last 2 years, the convention center, the Hutchinson Island, where the convention center is located, has been pretty much a mess because they're doubling the size of this thing. So if you want to park over there, you might want to park near the marsh or something, or on the golf course, because they've taken up most of the parking. I don't know what they're going to do, but the governor has given, for his 2024 budget proposal, $8 million for furniture, fixtures, and equipment in the large exhibition hall. And according to Mark Smith, who is chairman of the Savannah, Georgia Convention Authority, said the allocation put the project within $2 million of being fully funded. Which is pretty good, because usually, you build these things and say, well, that was nice, but we're still $84 million in debt. And so when it's going to be nice, very nice when it's completed. But I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to, with how much they've expanded this place, just exactly how the parking is going to work.
Yeah, I think that will be interesting. But I will say, I do think this project, you will get a return on your investment. Mm-hmm. People love to come to Savannah.
They do.
Have conventions. And also, it's kind of unique in the way that it is, because it is across the river. But I do think that it's kind of fun to tell people you can just jump on the ferry, go over to River Street, have a great time. It's a great convention location, honestly. Not a lot of traffic you have to deal with if you just deal with the ferry. Mm-hmm. So great location. And people like coming to Savannah, and it's a pretty good destination, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and we've got some new ferry boats on order. And I remember coming across it, and this is how we're different here than other places. A gentleman came up, I think he was from New York or New Jersey, as we were going across the water taxi some years ago, and he comes up to me as we were standing in line to get off. He said, "Do we pay the guy when we get off?" I said, "No, you don't pay at all." And he kind of looked at me funny. He said, "No, this is courtesy of the Chatham County taxpayer. So enjoy." So there's no charge for the water taxi. It's really, really cool. So there's that. Also, right up the road, Brittany, we have the Alex Murdaugh double murder trial that is under jury selection, began yesterday. Right up the road in Walterboro, South Carolina, beautiful little community about 30 miles west of Charleston. But the Murdaugh is accused of killing his wife, Maggie, and his younger son, Paul. He's charged with 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. And both Maggie and Paul were found shot to death at the family's Colleton County hunting property in June of 2021. So it's been almost 2 years now. Since this all began. He's also accused of stealing lots and lots of money from clients. This guy is a sleaze bag, dirt bag from way back. This kind of guy that could put on a top hat and walk under a snake. So whatever happens to him, he deserves it.
I don't disagree with you, Bill. And there's been a lot of national attention on this. There's been a lot of podcasts that have been done on this trial specifically. I don't know that you could move this venue anywhere and that he would get a trial in which no one's been exposed to.
Yeah, but I'm surprised they kept it in Walterboro.
I'm very surprised myself, especially because he supposedly he has had a lot of pull in that community for a long time. They're kind of a known family there.
Very prominent.
Yes.
Extremely prominent family for years. So the fact that this guy turned, maybe he was a dirt bag from the beginning. I suppose he was, and those things, like anything else, it takes a while to build that house of cards. But when it falls, brother, it comes down pretty hard. Well,
and I think when you're not used to consequences, when you're able to get away with things, people get you out of trouble. Exactly. I think that this is kind of what tends to happen. It's kind of just like with crime, right, Bill? You start, shoplifting a little thing of lipstick, and then pretty soon you're doing armed robberies and mugging people on the streets, and it just it accelerates when you're not held accountable.
And speaking of not held accountable, there's also something I want to talk about as far as the George Soros funding of local attorneys and district attorneys and things of that nature. We'll talk about that and more coming up right after the break.
Bernard Williams Insurance and Financial Services, a locally owned and operated insurance company, proudly serving the Savannah community with integrity, security, and trust. Experience the power of the Shield since 1934. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
At Get Real America, we'd like to thank the Southeast Georgia Republican Assembly for all their efforts on making a difference in our communities.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, Then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
It's Tuesday morning, 24th day of January, and cold outside.
It sure is, Bill.
And so dress in layers, even though it's only going to go up to about 60 today, but mostly sunny skies, at least here in Savannah. One of the things that they were pointing out, we've talked about the George Soros situation, all these district attorneys around the country, that our state legislature is in session right now, and some changes probably need to be made. But it's difficult when you get to get legislation passed, to get new laws put into place, to implement those. It's much easier, and this was the George Soros thinking, and this is something that Tommy Lahren pointed out on Fox and Friends First this morning, that Republicans are always playing reactive and catch up rather than what the left is doing, and we need to start finding out and start looking at their tactics and emphasize on local elections. This is what everybody was asking, and there were even the lamestream media was saying, why is George Soros putting so much money into so many of these local elections, especially in the district attorney? Well, rather than change the laws, you get somebody elected who won't enforce them.
Yep.
And that's exactly what we have. What's the story here? We got Brittany there, that this guy that we had charged right here in Chatham County with murder?
Yeah, so Kyle Talley, he's a gang member, convicted felon, and man who committed an execution-style murder on the side of the road, just pled way down to 25 served, 12 on voluntary manslaughter. He has been in 4 years and will be eligible for parole. Chief Assistant ADA Michael Edwards, who used to be a chief public defender, has already pled one murder case down like this year and multiple times last year. At this point, it's not a bug in the feature. You can murder in Chatham County, and you are pretty much guaranteed to have the case reduced to manslaughter. We are lucky enough to have a Soros DA here in Chatham County.
Yeah, boy.
Yes, and she has done quite a number on our system and that DA's office. We are down to under 20 ADAs from what I understand, and the full caseload, staff should be 43. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty big difference, Bill. And we're seeing
just a tad.
We're seeing the fact that they're just pleading these down so they don't have to deal with them. Honestly, mm-hmm. So can you imagine being the family of the murder victim?
Yeah, court's backing up, and this is the reason. And then you get these miscreants that are going back on the street. So I said, is he eligible for parole now? After 4 years?
He'll be eligible for parole because it's pled down to a 12-year sentence, time served, and then I think based on
12 years is still pretty lenient.
Uh-huh.
So
for an execution style murder, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. This is mob mafia tactics type thing. Well, and of course the people are men and women in blue who go out and put their lives on the line. God bless anybody who even wants to do this job anymore, much less goes and applies and gets the job. Because of what's going on with police work. One of my favorite retired cops, he was retired mandatorily because he got stopped on a DUI one night. That ended his police career. But he's made lemonade out of lemons. Kevin Grogan, he wrote a book about his experiences as one of these undercover cops or part of these gang searchers that go into these bad neighborhoods and chase down the real bad guys. Very effective police officer, also Army vet as well. And Kevin Grogan is his name. Black Sheep, White Cop was his first book. He's got a new one out called Ruffian. They're talking about making a movie or a TV series out of that first book. And Kevin and I had a little chat about police work and his experiences just recently. Kevin, what are they? Your new book, Ruffian? Tell us about what's the plot there.
So Ruffian was a organized crime drug enforcement task force. It was a cooperation between the Savannah Chatham Metropolitan Police Department and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. It was a response to violence and gangs in the city of Savannah. So what we did, we wanted to create a roadmap. We wanted to go into a neighborhood and really get the pulse of what was going on in the neighborhood. So, the wave of the future, I think, so 2010 is when we did all this, but I still think it's pertinent today because where in 2004 proactive policing, jumping out, doing all these things was the way to go. In 2010, we kind of adopted intelligence gathering mentality. So now we wanted to go get the pulse of what's going on in the neighborhood, good and bad, get a feeling for it. And we started in Carver Heights. So we started there and looked, and there was a lot of open air drug activity. That was the thing that jumped out immediately. It was like, wow, okay, these guys are dealing drugs. They do it. It was almost like a flea market or a farmer's market right there on Gwinnett Street in Stiles. It was like, bam, there you go. If you're looking for it, here it is. There's no problem. But then we dug a little bit deeper, and as we got deeper into the neighborhood, you started to see graffiti and markings, and as you watched people, you would see tattoos and T-shirts and all this kind of stuff identifying an organization. CVT was what it was called, Carver Village Thoroughbreds, which is actually where the name Ruffian came from. It's a tip of the hat to a former racing champion. She was a four-time. Basically, she was the female equivalent of or equivalent to the Triple Crown winner, like Secretariat, and right around that time frame. But because they were the thoroughbreds, we went. But it was more to the tenacity. So her reputation was tenacity and determination, and that's the way we were going to go at this operation. So we went in, and as we learned. Okay, these guys, what you see on the street, that's not really what you're after. You want to stop that, of course, but you want to get behind it and see how do we get the guys who are benefiting the most from that. And usually the guys benefiting most from that are the ones with the money that are providing the drugs that's going out on the street, but they're also the ones who are committing the more violent crimes of stealing cars, because that's how that economy runs. You steal cars, you rob stores, you rob other drug dealers. That's where your currency comes in to pay for all these things. So we wanted to deal more with those guys, and over the course of, I think it was about 10 months, we had a really good feel of what was going on. Anytime something moved or came into the neighborhood, we would get a call from an informant or some of our other technological tools that we use. We knew the hot spots to look at, and we knew pretty much what was going on. But we wound up indicting several people out of there and removing them. And there's one thing about that's part of.
All right, Kevin Grogan. That was part two of an interview that we did with him, and he was explaining, Brittany, that you cut off the head of the snake. Okay, we want to get these people that are these low lifes that are dealing on the street, but you want to get behind that, get to the guys who are actually the distributors. And that's exactly what they did. When I was first talking to Kevin about how he got involved in police work and about his first book, Black Sheep, White Cop, this is what he had to say about how he got involved in all of this in the first place. We're talking with former police officer Kevin Grogan, and Kevin has a new book out. Kevin, this kind of started out as something that was as a catharsis for you more than anything else. So when you wrote your first book called Black Sheep, White Cop, and you told about your police stories and even kind of a mea culpa or whatever, falling on your sword or something along those lines. And you just did it just to make yourself feel better, just to get it off your chest, and you didn't think this was going to go anywhere except maybe a few friends and family and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And then now it's what I do. I'm actually in the middle of writing my third one. I don't know. It's become a pretty fun hobby. But I think any police officer, anybody who's spent any time on the street, everybody's got stories to tell. And once I learned kind of how to tell them, that's what I do. And there's a lot of things, as you well know, the politics in the city of Savannah are interesting, and there's a lot to talk about there. So I usually combine a lot of what people call war stories, with the purpose of enlightening people to what really goes on out in the streets, and then I mix it with a political message. My first one obviously was haranguing the former district attorney, Meg Heap, and then Ruffian goes a lot into our former police chief, Roy Minter, and kind of how things go on. As a matter of fact, the third book, I think right now, tentatively, the title is Dome Rocker, which is a colloquialism for a gunshot to the head, but also we refer to City Hall as the Dome. So I'm gonna rock the Dome with this one a little bit too.
Well, when you started writing the first book, what were the things that came to you? What was your background? How did this all come about?
The crazy thing to me was, so Murray Silver Jr. was running for mayor, and he had written, way back when, he had written the biography of Jerry Lee Lewis, who recently passed. And when he was running for mayor, it just so happened that was right when I went through everything, when I left the police department and all that. And Murray Silver's big push was what was going on with the police department, what was wrong with the police department, how do we fix it? All right, and I found myself in an interesting position, having just left the police department and have intricate knowledge of what was going on inside the police department, but also I had no fear of reprisal. I was already gone, so I could say whatever I wanted about what was really going on. So I sat down with Murray a couple times and we talked about it. At that same time, my partner in crime, retired ATF agent Lou Velosi, was looking to write a book. Our buddy Jay Dobbins, who's another undercover ATF agent, had put out 2 books that were New York Times bestsellers. So, Lou was thinking, hey, I got a story to tell too. And he said, I'm going to write a book. I said, well, I don't know anything to write about books, but Murray does. So I introduced the 2 of them and we got down talking. And it was during those talks where I really realized, like, hey, if nothing else, I'll just write this stuff down. And during writing that, you go through so much. Your one thought is police work and you're writing about this, but as you're writing about it, all these other thoughts and feelings and everything else that you're going through comes out. So it was really quite an experience. I enjoyed it so much I keep doing it.
As a matter of fact, all right, tell me about your police background. What were you doing, and how come we're not doing it now? Because it seemed to be very effective.
Well, the thing is politics. Politics will always change that, and police work as I knew it in 2004 is not what they're allowed to do today. If YouTube and cameras and that type, the scrutiny that's on professional law enforcement these days goes on with everybody second guessing it, and I might add that they're perfectly comfortable second guessing you, even though you're a trained professional. You're the one who's been through the academies. You're the guys and girls who are out there on the street doing your job, trained professionals. Nobody nowadays has any hesitation to critique and say, well, obviously I've seen a 38-second segment of a video of an entire situation, and I can pick this apart. I would have known what to do. They should have shot him in the leg. They should have tased him. They should have done this. They should have done that. And of course, there's no credibility to any of those suggestions because you don't know what you do until you're there. And that, I think, has been a major, major change in the law enforcement profession. But what we did even on patrol back then, was we were very proactive. We went into the neighborhoods. We went into situations trying to prevent the next thing from happening. And it was more, people always say, oh, you're harassing me. No, it's a police department's job to know what's going on in the community and get active in the community. And when you're dealing with citizens who are law-abiding citizens, that involvement is, hello, how are you? It's all this stuff you see now, coffee with cops, playing with kids on the ball field. That's all great stuff. But you need to have that same involvement with the criminal element. And when they're standing out on corners selling drugs and plotting their next move, you need to interrupt that. You need to jump out and give them the same amount of attention that you're giving the law-abiding community. And I think that's what's lost now. That is no longer publicly acceptable. And I think with our very democratic government now, that hands off, maybe there's another reason that they're misbehaving. That's great, but police officers are a lot more than, social workers. They're a lot more than teachers. They're a lot more, but in the end, their responsibility, their duty, their mission is to keep the good people safe from the bad people. And I think that line gets lost a lot. We expect a lot from our police officers. We don't pay them very well. We expect them to know exactly the right thing to do in every situation. I mean, what profession can you expect that from anybody? So it's you know, I think that's a huge difference between then and now.
Now, when you wrote the book, and what were the big surprise? When did you start to realize I've touched a chord here? Because it started selling a lot better than you thought it would.
Yeah, no, the first one, Black Sheep, came out and it hit, you know, it exploded. I think it exploded because I used the name Willie Lovett, and that got people super shocked, I think. And, you know, the title was incendiary. You know, it struck a nerve. And when
Welcome back.
And one of the, for those of you who are not familiar, Willie Lovett was the Savannah police chief who was accused of taking money under the table and giving guard and sending some Savannah police officers who also have been dismissed and been disciplined for that, for guarding drug dealers and drug deliveries. So he is he's out of jail now. But he spent some time in the place where he used to send folks.
Wow, this is the first I've heard of that. So there is like a dark cloud a little bit over the Savannah police. It sounds like.
Well, there was at that time, yeah. I think, and the new chief, when we got Roy Mentor in, he cleared up some things, but also he didn't continue the program that Kevin was involved in. You know, it's one of those things. But let's go in and be nice to these people. And you know,
that
community
works,
policing type thing, yeah. But at least it cleared a lot of it up. But now I think the new chief is going to be absolutely fantastic. So we'll see how that works out. Meanwhile, we'll see how things work out with Prager University and some of the things that they're doing to help save America. All coming up next on Get Real America.
At Get Real America, we want to promote your business to our conservative audience.
At Get Real America, we want to make sure that the real story gets out, and you can help us as a sponsor or as an advertiser to make sure that word does get out to the community.
Be a sponsor.
I don't think it's an accident that I ended up writing music for a living, because I think I lived in a house where I saw how deeply it affected everyone in the house. And just how much everyone defined themselves by the music they listened to.
Music as a framework, I think, gave my parents my identity from a young age. You can like any music that you want if it makes you feel happy. And now when I hear certain songs, I think of them, and I think of them in their happiest state, and it makes me happy.
If they seem like they're having trouble talking about something, I try to tell them about a time when I felt something similar.
Whatever the issue was, we would tell them the pros and cons and how important it was, and that they had come to us because we could always help them. I think the real important point, we always told them, no matter what you do, no matter what happens, we will help you through it no matter what it is.
Bernard Williams Insurance and Financial Services, a locally owned and operated insurance company, proudly serving the Savannah community with integrity, security, and trust. Experience the power of the Shield since 1934. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you aboard, and glad to have a blessing of something like Prager University and all the great things that they do that had helped defend and educate young people about the greatness of America and give you the true story of the founding of this country.
Yes, one of the big things I like about PragerU is that they do it in a way that's very simplified. So you can't get super complicated in it or into the weeds. It's just very direct. And one of the things is Social Security. We hear that come up time and time again, that the Republicans are taking away your Social Security. You better watch out for those Republicans. They're
That's
coming.
right. I've only been hearing that story for about 50 years now.
Yeah, it never gets old, Bill. Apparently,
No,
Never
it
gets old.
doesn't. And apparently, it still has teeth for some reason.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but I think it's good to break down what Social Security actually is, how it's working, and some of the problems with it.
Yeah, biggest Ponzi scheme that was ever invented.
Yep.
It's when it was invented, it looked like it was going to work for a while anyway, because there were 64 people working for every retiree. Today, there's like 3.
Well, and I think that's the thing with government. The problem is that once something's not working, they just double down. And if we can't pay
apparently
for it,
we're
we'll
not
figure it
spending
out.
enough on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem. If it's not working, we haven't put enough money into it.
Yeah, we put in the war on poverty, which is the longest war we've ever been involved in. You ask people on the street, what's the longest war we've ever been involved in? Vietnam. No. Or Afghanistan. No. It's the war on poverty that was started by Lyndon Johnson.
Well, I think a close second is the war on drugs, correct?
Yeah. And if you look at the trillions of dollars that we have spent, and I'm talking big trillions of dollars that we have spent to solve the poverty problem, and we still have one, and it's even worse, wouldn't you think you'd do something different?
Not if it's the government.
Yeah. So with Social Security, the same thing. It's financed out of payroll taxes. It was supposed to be originally set up, and they originally set it up with a savings account type thing for people. But as the government got more socialist and they were looking at all these great programs to buy votes with, they said, where are we going to get all this money? And as Steve Forbes always said, you put a big pot of honey in the middle of the woods, and the bears are going to come after it.
Well, I also think it's been described as, you pay into this and there's like a special account with your name on it. That's not how that works.
No.
At all.
And it's not as Al Gore, who invented the internet, said he was going to put it in a lockbox. Yeah, right. There's no lockbox, folks. If it is, they have the combination.
Yeah, it's not for you, that's for sure.
So at Prager University, they're trying to get people straight on what Social Security actually is and what we could do better.
Social Security History of Betrayal. Just in case some of you young whippersnappers, and some older ones, didn't know this. It's easy to check out if you don't believe it. Be sure and show it to your family and friends. They need a little history lesson on what's what, and it doesn't matter whether you are Democrat or Republican. Facts are facts. Social Security cards up until the 1980s expressly stated the number and card were not to be used for identification purposes. Since nearly everyone in the United States now has a number, it became convenient to use it anyway, and the message, "not for identification," was removed. Our Social Security. Franklin Roosevelt, a Democrat, introduced the Social Security FICA program. He promised, 1, that participation in the program would be completely voluntary. No longer voluntary. 2, that the participants would only have to pay 1% of the first $1,400 of their annual incomes into the program. Now, 7.65% on the first $90,000. 3, that the money the participants elected to put into the program would be deductible from their income for tax purposes each year. No longer tax deductible. 4, that the money the participants put into the Independent Trust Fund rather than into the General Operating Fund, and therefore would only be used to fund the Social Security Retirement Program and no other government program. And under Johnson, the money was moved to the general fund and spent. 5, that the annuity payments to the retirees would never be taxed as income. Under Clinton and Gore, Up to 85% of your Social Security can be taxed. Since many of us have paid into FICA for years and are now receiving a Social Security check each month, and then finding that we're getting taxed on 85% of the money we paid into the federal government to put away, you may be interested in the following. Which political party took Social Security from the Independent Trust Fund and put it into the general fund so that Congress could spend it? It was Lyndon Johnson and the democratically controlled House and Senate. Which political party eliminated the income tax deduction for Social Security FICA withholding? The Democratic Party. Which political party started taxing Social Security annuities? The Democratic Party, with Al Gore casting the tie-breaking deciding vote as President of the Senate while he was Vice President of the United States. Which political party decided to start giving annuity payments to immigrants? And my favorite, that's right, Jimmy Carter and the Democratic Party. Immigrants moved into this country and at age 65 began to receive Social Security payments. The Democratic Party gave these payments to them, and even though they never paid a dime into it. Then after violating the original contract, FICA, the Democrats turn around and tell you that the Republicans want to take your Social Security away. And the worst part about it is uninformed citizens believe it. If enough people receive this, maybe a seed of awareness will be planted and maybe changes will evolve. But it's worth a try. How many people can you send this to? Actions speak louder than bumper stickers. Please do keep this one rolling across the country. Hopefully it will open a few eyes.
Well, I'm not here to tell you who to vote for, but I am here to tell you who not to vote for. Don't vote for anyone who says, "I'll fight for you," because that person is full of crap and has no intention of not only fighting for you, he doesn't know who you are. He or she's just moving on to the next town where they can point at the next sap and say, "I'll fight for you." So tired of these politicians and their town hall meetings when somebody stands up and says, "I'm pregnant with quadruplets, been put on academic probation at the junior college, and my milkman hates my guts. What are you gonna do for me?" And my answer is nothing. But here's the good news. We live in the United States. You can do something for you. Feel free to get a job and fight to keep it. Let me give you a really good example of people doing too much for others and us coming apart at the seams as a society. You guys remember when you were kids and you'd fake an illness and you'd stay home from school and you'd sit there on your sofa and you'd watch daytime TV. Hey, I'm Wally Thorpe, School of Trucking. You can get to trucking too. Be a long-haul trucker. Get your license. Hit the open road. Make a good living. Learn typewriter repair. Learn toaster repair. Remember all of those commercials? Every single commercial was geared to somebody who was out of work, but who wanted to work. Why? Well, it's Tuesday. It's noon. Who's going to be home watching this TV show? People who are out of work. What do people who are out of work want to do? They want to get to work. Thus, they learn to drive an 18-wheeler. Now, look at every commercial that's on during daytime TV. Wrongfully let go by an employer, slip and fall in a supermarket, you can sue. Hi, I'm attorney Lance Bassman, and I'll fight for you. See, the same people that say they're gonna fight for you are the same people trying to get you free crap when you won't get off your ever-enlarging butt that's now melding and becoming one with your sofa. Fixing your screwed up life is not the government's job. And by the way, when does the government do a good job at fixing anything? I mean, I live in Los Angeles. We pay the most in taxes and we get the least in education. I want the government to do stuff that I can't do. Stop a war, end a plague, that kind of stuff. stuff involving me, stuff involving my family, stuff involving my community, I can handle that. Also, don't vote for the politician who says, I know it's not a level playing field, I'm going to level it for you. That's impossible. It is mathematically impossible to have a level playing field. What are we going to do about fat people being discriminated against? Some people are born with one limb shorter than the other. Other people are born with a Brillo head. There's nothing we can do about it. The government's job is to clear the playing field, not level the playing field. Since it's impossible for them to level the playing field, just clear it of all the landmines and all the barbed wire and let us get to work. And don't worry, this is a great country. The harder you work, the more you score, and eventually your team goes to the Super Bowl. So let's review. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'll tell you who not to vote for. Don't vote for the guy who says he's going to get rid of all your problems, take care of you, and tuck your kids in at night. You see, humans need challenges to overcome, just like a muscle needs resistance to grow. In a zero-gravity environment, an astronaut's muscles atrophy because there is no resistance. The government giving you a bunch of handouts and living your life for you is basically the equivalent of doing push-ups in outer space. Look, Ma, I can clap 5 times, just like Rocky in between sets. Big government is like the void of space. It's massive, constantly expanding, and if we immerse ourselves in it, we'll simply wither away. I'm Adam Carolla for Prager University.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care can keep families together. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Bernard Williams Insurance and Financial Services, a locally owned and operated insurance company, proudly serving the Savannah community with integrity, security, and trust. Experience the power of the Shield since 1934. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Heading down the home stretch here for this Tuesday morning.
Yes, we are. And, you know, Bill and I were just talking about, you know, PragerU and that video with Adam Carolla and the fact that he did it and it was funny. I think people remember that stuff. I think if you make it too boring, people are like, no, thank you. I don't want to listen to this.
Adam Carolla's hilarious. You need to pick up his book, Everything Reminds Me of Something. So
what is that about? Like, tell me.
I haven't read it yet.
You haven't read it yet? Okay.
But all I know is that if Adam Carolla wrote it, it's hilarious. But it probably contains a lot of stuff like that. That the government is not here to be not supposed to be your babysitter, not supposed to take care of you from womb to tomb. That's socialism. That's communism. And we're getting more and more of that by people who are buying votes. And Benjamin Franklin warned us about this when we first got this whole thing established. When the lady asked him on the street, Mr. Franklin, Dr. Franklin, what do we have? He said, a republic, madam, if you can keep it. And he said, when people find out they can vote themselves largesse out of the public treasury, that's when it starts to go downhill.
And we have seen that.
Ooh.
And, you know, one of the things, our favorite person, Jean
Jean-Pierre.
She's just wonderful.
KJP.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, boy.
What she does
She may not be the dumbest woman on the planet, but she's in the top 2.
Well, the thing that I don't like, Bill, is the gaslighting and the fact that they're allowed to just lie. And it's blatant. I mean, we have a clip of her today, which I'm just like, I rolled my eyes as soon as I saw it because I was like, this woman cannot be legitimate at all. I think we have.
Now, House Republicans are using their narrow majority to force the American people to pay higher gas prices just as big oil companies are amassing record profits. What's even more alarming is that this is not the only attempt by House Republicans' majority to raise costs on middle-class families. House Republicans are also pushing a tax increase on middle-class families, an inflation-worsening tax cut for the rich, and high prescription drug costs as well. These extreme policies would subject working families to immense financial pain and balloon our deficit, all just to benefit the wealthiest taxpayers and big corporations.
And of course, notice that she is reading every word of it, and not well.
Well, but she makes sure to do those arm movements.
Yes,
makes
sir.
her powerful.
Yes, get that in. And everything she just said was a lie.
Well, it's interesting. Republicans run on cutting taxes. She's saying that they're raising taxes. I mean, these people just continue to lie. They gaslight everyone. And the other thing is at the end of the day, Bill, do you care if a millionaire, billionaire pays taxes if it benefits you to not pay taxes? Do you see what I'm saying?
It matters not. It's not going to affect your life one way or the other. One thing that she did say about the rising profits for the oil companies. One of the reasons that the prices that they're getting record profits is because they're not having to spend any money drilling and looking for oil, because they've been practically put out of business. And we are, and by the way, the greatest gift to this world that God gave us was fossil fuels. Now they call it fossil fuels because they came up with some geological explanation for why this stuff was there. It was dinosaurs that deteriorated over years, and that's what caused it. Most of the geologists now realize that the Earth actually manufactures this stuff.
So wait a minute.
We couldn't have had this many dinosaurs. I'm sorry.
So would this be considered renewable energy?
This would be considered renewable energy, as a matter of fact. And I remember I was alive I was working in Charleston at the time in 1972, and we had the OPEC, the oil embargo, and there were gas lines, and you had to actually make a reservation at the gas station to go get a fill up, or at least they'll give you 10 gallons. So and it was rough, and we started going after our own oil. Prices started coming down and things of that nature. But they said that Saudi Arabia gave us this excuse, and OPEC gave us this excuse that, well, there's only a finite amount of oil down there. We have it, and there's only about 30 years supply left. That was 1972 or 1974. You do the math. They're still pumping oil. They're still finding huge oil fields today. And it was an announcement about a couple of years back where they found this huge new oil field in Saudi Arabia. Down in Mexico, they found a huge new oil field down there. Where did that come from? They said 50 years ago they were telling us we were running out in 30 years. And we still have plenty. It ain't dead dinosaurs, that's for sure.
Well, I think that's the thing. We need to start owning the language a little bit more. I mean, the left is very good at this. So
and there is,
I think we should just start referring to it as the renewable energy known as oil, and continue to use that against people, because it's actually, you guys are not talking about renewable energy. You guys are talking about harvesting energy. Totally different.
And by the way, they're always telling us this, wearing clothes that are made out of oil.
Yes.
Writing with pens made out of oil. These are petroleum products right here.
Yes.
So the petroleum does a lot more, and we need diesel fuel desperately.
Yes.
We should be going after it. It is not destroying the planet. Why is it okay to drill in Saudi Arabia? Why is it okay to drill in Venezuela or Brazil, but not here? How is that not helping the planet?
Well, not only that, Bill, why aren't we coming up with solutions? Where I'm from, Utah, we get this inversion. It's really gross. I'm not going to lie. But we've had all these people move in, and we have more cars there. You know, we've had more manufacturing move in, things like that. And there will be this, I don't know, dust cloud that settles over the valley. And you can see it when you come out of the mountains. You can see the clear inversion. But why aren't we coming up with technology to remove that from the air and clean it? Instead, we just talk about, you know.
We could use it. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you could turn that stuff into, I believe somewhere in Europe, they actually have a machine that pulls it out of the air, turns it into like a little rock jewel thing, and you could sell that as souvenirs.
Aggregate, yeah, or whatever. Yeah, you could say. But the thing is that this stuff is not only renewable. We have enough coal for about 500 years, and Hitler. In case you didn't know, those of you who didn't take history or weren't taught the
went to
real
public
history.
school.
Hitler ran the entire Third Reich on gasification of coal. You can turn coal. I did an interview with the governor of Montana, Brian Schweitzer, about 18 years ago, who was running his entire farm in Montana over gasification of coal. He built this converter that took it, and he said it was much cleaner than the oil that you get out. You didn't have to refine it. And he said that the diesel fuel that you get out of it, if you've ever seen diesel fuel, it looks kind of dirty. It's kind of an amberish orange and kind of dirty, not quite clear. He said this stuff almost looks like water. And he said, and he runs all of his farm tractors and everything on this. We could be gasifying coal and make things a lot better. The modern technology that we have now is a lot better than what Hitler had. And it was pretty efficient what they were doing there then, because we got a lot of dead Americans and French and English people to prove it. But that's the advantage of continuing to go with the technology as you get better and better as things go along. We have nuclear power plants. They are much more efficient now than and they're actually coming up with portable nuclear power plants. I thought when I was a kid, by the time I got to be at least this age, but a lot younger, that our cars would be atomic powered.
Well, so where are they having these portable nuclear plants? That's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah, that's going on elsewhere.
Okay,
because we're not developing. The companies do develop the technology, but we're not allowed to sell them here.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
like General Electric or Siemens are the people that build these things, Westinghouse and others who build nuclear reactors. But we're getting to the point now where we're coming very close to nuclear fusion. That would be the end of energy crisis. When you are not, because nuclear fusion is when the atoms and molecules combine, and there's no explosion there. There's no nuclear waste. It's purely clean energy, totally renewable, and it works 24/7. Doesn't have to wait on the wind. It doesn't have to wait on the sun. It runs all the time.
Well, and our friend Lizzie is up with us this morning. She said the PragerU video was great, gave you some great talking points on several issues. She said renewable energy when it comes to oil, exactly. China building coal-fired plants at a record pace. Y'all should do a tour of the massive scrubbers that are used at every coal plant in the United States. Many people mistake the steam release for pollution. And I have yet to see one progressive Democrat refuse to use electricity or ride in a gas engine vehicle or eschew air travel.
Yep, and talked to a friend of mine just recently who said his parents drove down from Canada in their new electric car. They had to stop every 90 miles to get it recharged, and it took a long time to get it recharged. And it took them like 4 days to drive down here.
See, I think when you when you think of things in an ideal way, I think it looks great, right? Like on paper.
Oh, yeah.
In
the
practice,
Big Rock Candy Mountain.
In practice, not so great.
No.
Not so great. So I think maybe other people need to have those experiences built for them to turn back to
good old
works.
Utopia. Yeah. Yes. It ain't happening.
No.
But it's nice that the world they live. I'd love to live on that same planet that Pete Bootylicious and Jennifer Granholm live on. But it doesn't exist.
No, it does not.
Nor will it ever. That's going to wrap it up. We got getting ready for Hump Day, as we'll talk more about getting real here in America.
Yes, and we have some great interviews this week. Star Parker was someone that we were able to sit down with, and she's very lovely. If you guys missed an opportunity, don't miss the interview with her.
That's coming up. See you tomorrow.